Intelligence is not inherited. It is built quietly through the small disciplines you choose when no one is watching. Every morning you wake, you either sharpen your mind or allow it to dull. The difference between those who grow wiser and those who stagnate is never dramatic. It is found in the ordinary rituals that most people dismiss as insignificant. There exists a paradox in our modern world. We are drowning in information, yet starving for wisdom. We consume endless content, scroll through countless opinions, and fill our minds with noise that evaporates by evening. Meanwhile, the ancient Stoics understood something we have forgotten. They knew that intelligence is not about accumulating facts. It is about cultivating clarity, discipline, and the courage to think independently. Before we continue, if you recognize the value of building genuine wisdom in a world of distraction, subscribe now so you never miss the insights that will sharpen your mind and strengthen your character. The habits that make you smarter are not complex. They do not require expensive courses or special talents. What they demand is something far more challenging: consistency in the face of resistance. Your brain resists growth because growth requires energy. It craves the familiar path, the easy thought, the comfortable belief. But intelligence emerges precisely when you refuse that comfort. When you choose the harder mental work, you forge new neural pathways. When you embrace difficulty rather than avoid it, you expand your capacity to solve problems and see patterns others miss. Consider what makes someone truly intelligent. It is not their ability to recall facts or regurgitate information. True intelligence reveals itself in how someone responds to complexity, handles uncertainty, and adapts to change. It shows in their ability to connect disparate ideas, to question their own assumptions, and to remain calm when others panic. These qualities are not innate gifts. They are the natural result of specific daily practices that reshape how your brain processes reality. The first habit that elevates intelligence is morning solitude. Before you touch your phone, before you absorb anyone else's agenda or anxiety, you must claim time alone with your thoughts. This is not meditation in the spiritual sense, though it shares some qualities. This is deliberate mental space where you organize your mind, review your intentions, and prepare for the day's challenges. Most people begin their day reactively, responding to messages and notifications before they have even clarified their own priorities. This trains your brain to be permanently reactive, always responding rather than initiating. Intelligence requires the opposite. It demands that you think first, then act. Morning solitude creates this foundation. Even 10 minutes of sitting in silence, journaling your thoughts, or simply staring out a window without distraction allows your mind to settle. In this stillness, clarity emerges. You see what matters and what does not. You separate signal from noise before the noise has a chance to overwhelm you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This single insight contains the entire Stoic approach to intelligence. Your mind is the one domain where you have complete sovereignty. Everything outside your skull is beyond your control, subject to chaos and chance. But inside, you reign absolutely. The intelligent person recognizes this and invests their energy accordingly. They do not waste mental resources worrying about what others think or trying to control external circumstances. Instead, they focus entirely on sharpening their perception, improving their judgment, and strengthening their reasoning. This is not selfish, it is strategic. The clearer you think, the more useful you become to everyone around you. Watch how this plays out in everyday moments between men and women. Intelligence in a woman is often dismissed or misunderstood because it does not announce itself. It operates quietly, strategically, reading situations while others are still reacting to them. Picture a woman in a corporate meeting. The men around the table are speaking loudly, competing for airtime, each trying to prove their idea is superior. She says little. She watches. She notices who interrupts whom, who defers to whom, where the actual power sits versus where the noise lives. When she finally speaks, her words cut through the posturing because she has already mapped the room's dynamics. She does not need to shout because she understands something they do not. Volume is not power. Precision is power. This capacity to read beneath the surface, to see what is actually happening rather than what people claim is happening, is a form of intelligence that develops through daily practice. It requires you to resist the urge to immediately react or prove yourself. It demands patience and the willingness to observe before you engage. Consider another scene. A woman is dating someone new. He is charming, attentive, says all the right things, but she notices small inconsistencies. He criticizes his ex-girlfriend with contempt. He arrives late without acknowledgement. He makes grand promises about the future but fails to follow through on small commitments in the present. Most people ignore these signals because they want to believe the story he is telling. But an intelligent woman does not ignore what her observations reveal. She does not gaslight herself into dismissing the evidence her senses provide. This is not cynicism. This is empiricism. She trusts the pattern more than the words. This habit of honoring your own observations, of refusing to deny what you clearly see, is fundamental to intelligence. It requires daily practice in smaller situations, training yourself to notice and trust the data your senses collect, rather than overriding it with wishful thinking or social pressure. Here is a third scene. A woman is in conflict with a friend who constantly drains her energy. Every conversation becomes a therapy session, where the friend vents but never listens, complains but never changes, demands support but never reciprocates. An intelligent response is not dramatic. It is not confrontation or cruelty. It is simply the quiet withdrawal of energy. She stops initiating contact. She becomes less available. When they do speak, she offers less emotional labor. This is intelligence as boundary, as resource allocation. She recognizes that her mental energy is finite and precious. Spending it on people who do not value it is not kindness. It is self-betrayal. The daily habit here is conducting regular audits of where your energy flows. Who and what receives your attention? Is that investment returning value? Or simply depleting you? Intelligence requires the courage to reallocate your resources when the data shows you are sustaining something that does not sustain you. The second habit that builds intelligence is reading with resistance. Most people read passively, absorbing information without friction. They nod along with the author, assume the expert is correct, and file away conclusions without examining the reasoning. This makes you knowledgeable, perhaps, but not intelligent. To become smarter, you must read actively, even combatively. Question every claim. Ask what evidence supports this argument. Consider what the author might be omitting. Look for the hidden assumptions beneath their thesis. This does not mean you reject everything or become cynically suspicious of all expertise. It means you engage your critical faculties rather than outsourcing your judgment to whoever wrote the book. When you read actively, you are not just collecting information. You are training your mind to evaluate arguments, spot logical fallacies, and distinguish between correlation and causation. This skill transfers to every area of life. You become harder to manipulate because you automatically analyze claims rather than accepting them. You make better decisions because you have practiced examining evidence rather than following emotion or authority. The third habit is deliberate discomfort. Your brain is an efficiency machine. It wants to conserve energy by repeating familiar patterns. This is why you default to the same thoughts, the same routes, the same responses in similar situations. To become smarter, you must regularly disrupt these patterns by choosing difficulty. Learn a skill that frustrates you. Have conversations with people whose worldviews challenge yours. Read books in genres you normally avoid. Travel alone to places where you do not speak the language. Each time you place yourself in uncomfortable territory, your brain is forced to build new pathways. It cannot rely on automatic responses. It must pay attention, adapt, and create novel solutions. This neuroplasticity, this capacity to rewire itself, is the biological foundation of intelligence, but it only activates under pressure. Comfort keeps you stagnant. Discomfort makes you grow. The fourth habit involves writing to clarify thought. Thinking alone is not enough because thoughts can remain vague and contradictory in your head without consequences. Writing forces precision. When you must put an idea into words on a page, you immediately discover whether you actually understand it. Writing reveals gaps in your logic, exposes assumptions you did not realize you were making, and shows you where your reasoning breaks down. The Stoics were prolific writers, not because they wanted to publish, but because they used writing as a tool for thinking. Seneca's letters, Epictetus's discourses, and Marcus Aurelius's meditations were never meant for public consumption. They were laboratories for developing clearer thought. You do not need to write for an audience. You need to write for yourself. Journal about decisions you face. Explain complex ideas in simple terms, as if teaching someone else. Argue both sides of a question you are uncertain about. This daily practice transforms fuzzy intuitions into precise understanding. It makes you smarter because it forces you to think rigorously rather than impressionistically. The fifth habit is strategic silence. Most people talk too much. They fill every pause with words, rush to share opinions, and confuse speaking with thinking. But intelligence often expresses itself through restraint. When you practice silence, several things happen. First, you listen better. You actually hear what others are saying rather than just waiting for your turn to talk. This gives you information they do not realize they are revealing. Second, you think more clearly. The pause before speaking allows you to choose your words rather than blurting your first impulse. Third, you project authority. People who speak less are taken more seriously because their words carry weight. This is especially powerful for women, who are often socialized to fill silence with pleasantries and emotional labor. The woman who can sit comfortably in silence while others nervously chatter is demonstrating a form of power that most people never develop. She is secure enough to withhold her thoughts until speaking serves her purpose. This daily practice of choosing when to speak rather than always speaking trains your brain to be strategic rather than reactive. Now let me ask you something that matters. Are you genuinely committed to becoming smarter, or do you just enjoy the idea of it? If you want to actually transform how you think, like this video right now, and leave a comment sharing which of these habits challenges you most, because that engagement tells the algorithm to share this wisdom with others who need it. The sixth habit is systematic learning. Intelligence is not random accumulation. It is structured knowledge building. Every day, you should be learning something that connects to what you already know, creating a web of understanding rather than isolated facts. Choose a domain that fascinates you and go deep. Read the foundational texts. Study the experts. Learn the history of the ideas. Then connect this knowledge to adjacent fields. If you study psychology, connect it to economics. If you study biology, connect it to philosophy. These connections between disciplines are where true intelligence lives. The person who knows one thing deeply is an expert. The person who sees connections between multiple domains is a genius. This does not require you to become a polymath who masters everything. It requires you to build knowledge deliberately rather than consuming information randomly. 30 minutes of focused study on a subject that matters to you will compound into expertise over months and years. Most people never do this. They skim articles, watch videos, and collect trivia. They mistake exposure for understanding. You must go deeper. The seventh habit involves physical challenge. Intelligence is not purely mental. Your brain is an organ that depends on your body's health. When you challenge yourself physically, you increase blood flow, produce growth factors that support neuron development, and improve your brain's ability to process information. This is not about aesthetics or weight loss. This is about cognitive enhancement. The person who sits all day, eats poorly, and avoids physical exertion is literally starving their brain of the resources it needs to function optimally. You do not need to become an athlete. You need to move your body in ways that challenge it. Walk for an hour. Lift heavy things. Run until your lungs burn. Do yoga that tests your balance. The specific activity matters less than the intensity. When you push your body beyond comfort, you trigger adaptations that benefit your mind. You also build the discipline required for intellectual work. The same mental strength that gets you through a difficult workout is the strength that allows you to persist through challenging books or complex problems. The eighth habit is embracing error. Most people avoid situations where they might be wrong because being wrong feels like failure. But intelligence develops through error correction, not through always being right. The person who is willing to voice an uncertain opinion, test a hypothesis, and discover they are mistaken, learns far more than the person who only speaks when they are confident. This requires ego management. You must separate your identity from your beliefs. Your beliefs are tools for navigating reality. When a tool fails, you replace it. You do not defend it just because it was yours. This mental flexibility, this willingness to update your models when evidence contradicts them, is the essence of intelligence. Stupid people are certain. Smart people are constantly revising. Make it a daily practice to identify something you believe and ask yourself what evidence would convince you otherwise. If the answer is nothing could convince you, you are not holding a belief. You are clinging to an identity. True intelligence requires you to hold your conclusions lightly enough that better evidence can displace them. The ninth habit is cultivating curiosity about people who annoy you. Your natural impulse when someone irritates you is to dismiss them as stupid, crazy, or malicious. This protects your ego but destroys your understanding. An intelligent approach is the opposite. When someone behaves in a way that baffles or frustrates you, get curious. What do they value that you do not? What incentives are shaping their choices? What experiences led them to this worldview? This does not mean you must agree with them or excuse harmful behavior. It means you seek to understand the logic of their position, even when you reject it. This practice expands your mental models. It shows you how differently people can interpret the same reality. It reveals blind spots in your own thinking. The person who only talks to people like themselves never develops true intelligence because they never encounter genuine challenge to their assumptions. Your brain grows through friction with ideas that do not fit your existing framework. Seek that friction deliberately. The 10th habit involves managing your information diet with the same care you manage what you eat. You would not consume junk food at every meal and expect your body to thrive. Yet most people consume junk information constantly and wonder why they feel mentally foggy. What you put into your mind shapes what comes out of it. If you spend hours scrolling social media, watching reaction videos, and reading outrage journalism, you are training your brain to think in shallow, reactive, emotionally charged patterns. If instead you carefully curate what enters your awareness, choosing depth over breadth, signal over noise, and timeless wisdom over trending gossip, you train your brain to think clearly and see deeply. This requires active curation. Unfollow accounts that diminish you. Cancel subscriptions to content that makes you anxious without making you wiser. Protect your attention as fiercely as you would protect your money because your attention is more valuable than your money. You can always earn more money. You cannot reclaim time spent absorbing garbage. The 11th habit is teaching what you learn. Intelligence is not about hoarding knowledge. It is about transmitting it clearly. When you attempt to teach something, you immediately discover the gaps in your understanding. Teaching forces you to organize information logically, anticipate questions, and explain concepts simply. This process deepens your own comprehension exponentially. You do not need a formal platform. Teach your children. Explain ideas to friends. Write posts that clarify concepts for yourself. Help a colleague understand something they struggle with. Each time you translate your understanding into language another person can grasp, you strengthen your own mental models. The person who learns but never teaches knows far less than they think. The person who teaches regularly is constantly refining and deepening what they know. These habits are not complicated, but they are difficult because they require you to act against your brain's natural preference for ease. Your mind will resist this work. It will tell you that you are already smart enough, that these practices are unnecessary, that you can start tomorrow. This resistance is not your enemy. It is the indicator that you are growing. Every time you feel that resistance and act anyway, you are becoming smarter. Not because you learned a new fact, but because you strengthened your capacity to direct your own mind. The connection to female psychology here is profound and often overlooked. Women are socialized to be accommodating, to minimize their intelligence so others feel comfortable, to second-guess their perceptions when they conflict with social expectations. An intelligent woman threatens systems built on her cooperation and self-doubt. When you develop genuine intelligence through these daily practices, you become dangerous to mediocrity. You stop accepting gaslighting. You trust your observations. You refuse to dumb yourself down. You recognize manipulation when it occurs. You exit situations that diminish you. You choose relationships based on respect rather than need. This is not selfish. This is self-preservation. The woman who makes herself smarter is harder to exploit, easier to respect, and impossible to ignore. The language you use changes as you become more intelligent. You stop hedging everything with apologies and qualifications. You stop saying, "I think, maybe, possibly," when you mean, "I know." You stop asking permission through your tone when stating facts. You stop performing uncertainty to make others comfortable. Your words become more precise because your thoughts are clearer. You can articulate complex ideas simply. You can argue without becoming emotional. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can stand firm without being rigid. This command of language is power in its most practical form. The person who can think clearly and speak precisely shapes reality for everyone around them. Your posture changes too. Intelligence shows in how you carry yourself. The person who knows their own mind stands differently than someone who is confused or uncertain. There is no performance here, no fake confidence. There is simply the natural alignment that comes from internal clarity. Your shoulders drop because you have released the tension of trying to be something you are not. Your gaze steadies because you are not constantly seeking approval or validation from others. Your movements become more economical because you are not fidgeting with anxiety. You occupy space without apology because you understand your right to exist exactly as you are. This physical transformation is not something you force. It emerges naturally as your mind becomes more organized and self-assured. The actions you take shift fundamentally. An intelligent person does not waste energy on pointless battles. They do not argue with people who are not arguing in good faith. They do not try to control what they cannot control. They do not stay in situations that damage them simply because leaving is uncomfortable. They make hard decisions cleanly. They say no without guilt. They redirect their resources toward what actually matters. They plan for probabilities while preparing for uncertainties. They move through the world with intention rather than reacting to whatever circumstances throw at them. This is not cold or calculating. This is intelligent design of your own life. The emotional close of this understanding is simple but not easy. You already possess everything you need to become smarter. You do not need permission or special access or perfect conditions. You need only to begin. Today. Now, with the smallest habit, choose one practice from what you have heard and implement it tomorrow morning. Not all 11. Just one. Master that single habit until it becomes automatic, then add another. Intelligence is not a destination where you finally arrive and declare yourself smart enough. It is a direction you move in through daily practice. The gap between who you are and who you could become is filled only with the consistent choices you make when it would be easier to choose comfort. This is the Stoic path, not dramatic transformation through revelation, but steady improvement through discipline. Not waiting for ideal circumstances, but working with what you have right now. Not seeking validation from others, but building genuine capacity that requires no external confirmation. The intelligent life is not louder or flashier than the average life. It is simply clearer, more purposeful, and more alive to reality as it actually is rather than as you wish it would be. If you are serious about this path, subscribe to this channel now, because every video we create is designed to give you the practical philosophy that sharpens your mind and strengthens your character, and the next video will reveal the specific strategies for maintaining this discipline when everything in your life is trying to pull you back toward mediocrity. That video is waiting for you. The only question is whether you will be ready for it.